In Colombia, the Institute for Study and Fostering of Peace, in the past by its acronym in Spanish, denounced this Saturday a new massacre in the Atlántico department. The government of Belgium has announced that it will establish a mandatory 21-day quarantine for people showing symptoms of monkeypox. In South Africa, India and Bangladesh, dozens have died and hundreds have been affected by heavy rains and floods over the weekend. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the FTS studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news, and we do so in Colombia. The Institute for the Study and Fostering of Peace denounced Saturday a new massacre in the Atlántico department. According to the organization, the massacre occurred in the sector of Barranquilla known as San Jose. The victims were identified as Robinson Enrique del Alba, 37 years old, Edwin Guillermo Sandoval, 21 years old, and Juan Carlos Mojica, 24 years old, who were shot by unknown men on a motorcycle. Authorities also reported that one man who was injured in the encounter remains hospitalized in serious conditions. According to the latest report issued by INDEPAS, this will be the 42nd massacre so far this year. In that same period, 76 social leaders and 21 former combatants have also been killed. In Mexico, lawyer and feminist activist Cecilia Monzon was murdered by hired killers in Conurbado municipality located in the city of San Pedro Cholula in the central state of Puebla. According to local sources, the incident took place on Saturday at around 10 a.m. local time. Monzon died inside her vehicle after being shot while driving on Camino Real Street to Momoxpan. According to the first versions, this was a direct attack as the lawyer was chased from the ecological highway by two men who were traveling on a motorcycle. Monzon was an advocate for the legalization of abortion, among other women's rights in Puebla. She was also an expert in public service with a strong gender perspective, a reason why she handled many cases of women victims of abuse, domestic violence, and fights over custody or child support. Also in Mexico, a group of migrants died and 20 sustained injuries after the truck in which they traveled toppled over. Police sources indicate the event transpired at 11:30 p.m. Saturday local time in the community of Yalchitom, municipality of Chamula, state of Chiapas. The cause of the accident is still being looked into. The number of fatal victims is also yet to be determined. For now, workers of the state's Attorney General's office continue with their efforts to gather information concerning the deceased and the injured. In Mexico, President Andrés Manuel López Obrador advocated for hiring health professionals coming from Cuba. The Mexican president defended his administration's strategy of hiring 500 Cuban specialists to cover the shortage of doctors in the country's rural areas. The head of state also claimed that the decision was advanced in order to guarantee and expand medical care in the country. President López Obrador stated that Mexico lacks enough doctors to treat its whole population due to the neoliberal policies promoted by past administrations, which supported healthcare privatization. In Cuba, with the attendance of President Miguel Díaz-Canel, ends this Sunday the popular exercise Meteoro 2022, an event aimed at reducing the risk of natural, technological, and health disasters in the largest of the Antilles. The annual activity that began this Saturday, May 24th, is carried out on the eve of an active cyclonic season on the island, taking into account the epidemiological situation sparked by the COVID-19 pandemic. On this second and last day, the activities were totally practical, with simulations which were carried out with the required personnel and in accordance with the essential protection measures, as indicated by the National General Staff of the National Civil Defense. The exercise includes an evaluation of the cyclonic season forecast in the Atlantic for this month until the end of next November. This will allow to update the plans to face natural disasters in the island. And just months before the elections in Brazil, the president of that country, Jair Bolsonaro, is going ahead with the negotiations to privatize part of the nation's resources and is already planning to sell one of the country's main state-owned companies next June. More details from our correspondent, Andres Vieira.
The main power company, Bras, is on its way to be privatized. The government of Jair Bolsonaro got the green light from the Union's Court of Accounts to pass control of the state-owned power company into private hands. The only member of the court who voted against it denounced several irregularities, including the fact that the government is charging less than $14 billion for an asset worth at least $29 million, which is less than half. I have no doubt. I have clear conscience that in the future, this court and each of one of us will be accountable to history. Another concern about privatization is the possibility that Brazil's nuclear power technology will pass into private hands if the state-owned company in this sector does not pay the debt it owes to Eletrobras. For environmentalist Sergio Ricardo, it is also alarming that the sale of the state-owned company will bring dirty energy generation back to Brazil. The radioactive plants, including coal-fired plants, which will contaminate the Brazilian energy matrix, which is an international reference and has a clean and sustainable matrix. In the last 10 years, the electricity bill in Brazil, according to the National Electricity Agency, between 2019 and 2021, during the government of Jair Bolsonaro, the rate rose 35%. 3 years ago, we paid around 200 to 250 reales, and today we pay around 650 to 700 reales, with the same consumption at home as we had 3 years ago, and today the price is very high. A very big difference, huge difference. It is expensive, but it can get worse. In the next few months, the electricity bill will go up about 80%, and in the medium and long term, it will go up even more with privatization. We do not know what kind of tariffs those who buy Eletrobras will choose to define the price, as happened in Rio de Janeiro.
The population suffers the consequences of paying those prices, and for me, it is something negative. First of all, because I am not in favor of privatization. It affects very much the structure of society.
Jair Bolsonaro's main adversary in the elections, former President Lula, warns that the sale of the Eletrobras is not a good deal, and that the buyer will have to negotiate with the Workers' Party if the left returns to the presidency of Brazil. Bolsonaro's government plans for next June the sale of the shares.
André Vieira e Sebastião Soto, TeleSUR, Brasil.
In Greece, the Coast Guard reported on Sunday the rescue of 21 migrants near the shoreline of the island of Rhodes. According to local media, the search for the migrants began after one of them called emergency services for help. The operation was carried out under adverse weather conditions. The Coast Guard confirmed that the search for the 21 migrants who traveled in an inflatable raft across the Aegean Sea was single-handedly coordinated by one sole search and rescue center. Coast Guard authorities also informed that all rescue migrants were taken on board several vessels headed to the island of Rhodes. We are taking a short break now. Join us again after this. Welcome back to From the South. The government of Belgium has announced that it will establish a mandatory 21-day quarantine for people showing symptoms of monkeypox. The nation becomes the first country to establish health restrictions for this disease. The move comes after health authorities reported 4 positive cases of monkeypox. Officials urged citizens to maintain preventive measures to avoid the spread of the infection. The disease originated in Africa and has recently been reported in several European countries like Spain, Italy, France, Belgium, Sweden, and Germany, among others. On Sunday, the World Health Organization issued a report on this relative new health concern worldwide, the monkeypox virus, who has just reported that the number of monkeypox cases has risen to 92 in a dozen countries. The WHO says that this date, no deaths have been reported as a consequence of the disease. Still, at least 28 people remain under investigation for possible infection with the virus. The WHO says they are working with the affected countries to monitor the disease and support those who may have been infected. The countries which reported cases this past week are Germany, Spain, Italy, France, Belgium, Sweden, United Kingdom, United States, Canada, Australia, and Portugal, the latter having the most cases. The World Health Organization holds its 76th annual assembly with the challenge of ending the state of emergency in which it has been working since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic and taking on new post-pandemic challenges. WHO's annual assemblies focus on mechanisms to try to avoid a similar crisis to the one brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. Other key issues on the agenda are a global strategy on food security, tuberculosis research, strengthening response to health emergency, and agreeing on a roadmap for the 2023-2030 period, which will include a cross-sector project on epilepsy and other neurological disorders. The President of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, whose country is a member of the WHO Executive Board, spoke during the assembly, calling on the people of the world to work together to be able to overcome possible new pandemics.
I say all this to emphasize that we are one people, interconnected, and with a shared future. No country is immune, and no country, however well-resourced, can do this alone. We must therefore foster greater cooperation and collaboration to find lasting solutions to the challenges facing our generation. This will set us on the right path towards sustainable development and attainment of the highest standards of healthcare to our people. Nationalism, fragmentation, discrimination, exploitation are not the ingredients for the world we want for tomorrow.
The Russian government expressed concern about the progressive militarization of the Arctic. The special envoy of the Russian Foreign Ministry and highest representative of the Eurasian nation to the Arctic Council, Nikolai Korchunov, described as very frightening the transformation of polar zones of the Northern Hemisphere into a military operation theater. Korchunov also noted an increase in military activity as well as an internationalization of this activity in high latitudes. The diplomat remarked that the neutral policy stance of Finland and Sweden had long helped to preserve peace and stability in the polar areas. Korchunov's statements come after Finland and Sweden submitted their formal application to join the North Atlantic Treaty Organization on Wednesday. In the context of the campaign launched against the Russian economy, the government of Lithuania said it will stop importing electrical energy from Russia. The measure is part of a package of over 10,000 sanctions directed towards Russia by a wide group of governments, many of them member nations of the European Union. With the new decision, Vilna announced the severance of its last ties with Moscow in terms of energy, since prior to that Lithuania had stopped purchasing gas and oil from the Eurasian nation. According to a communique of the Lithuanian Ministry of Energy, the country will fulfill its need with national production and imports conveyed through Latvia, Poland and Sweden. In Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelensky welcomed his Polish counterpart Andrzej Duda, who offered his support to the Ukrainian government in a speech at the Supreme Court. The presence of the Polish president is part of the campaign to position Ukraine. A campaign began with Zelensky's multiple appearances before parliaments around the world, where he spread his anti-Russian message and called for measures such as the confiscation of the assets of the Russian government officials in foreign countries. Duda labeled Kiev's struggle as heroic and said that Ukraine represents the resistance of the free world. The visit is part of the Kiev's effort to be admitted into the European Union and NATO. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Heavy rains hit South Africa again, leaving some 500 people displaced in the eastern coast. According to the authorities, new floods have again damaged infrastructure, roads, bridges, and buildings. Most of the damage occurred mainly in the metropolitan area of Durban, capital of the KwaZulu-Natal province. So far, there have been no reports of fatalities nor of anyone injured. In view of the situation, authorities have set up some 82 shelters and have evacuated elderly people from several affected areas. Police, firefighters, and rescue workers have been deployed to the affected areas to provide support to the residents, for the weather forecast indicates heavy rains will continue through Monday. Floods have also been reported in South Asia. In Bangladesh, where waters from northeast India breached a dike on the Borak River, a river shared by the two countries, flooding at least 100 villages. According to officials from the Bangladesh State Flood Forecasting and Warning Center, the water overflowed about 70% of the Shilhal district, the largest city in the region, and about 60% of the Sunamganj district. These floods in northeastern Bangladesh, considered the worst in nearly 2 decades, have killed at least 10 people, and rescuers are still struggling to help millions of people in areas that have been cut off. Heavy rains were also reported in India during the past week, with resulting floods and landslides that have caused the death of over 50 people. According to authorities, of these fatal victims, 18 correspond to the state of Assam in the country's northeast, while 33 are from the state of Bihar, west of Assam. More than 92,000 people in India live in shelters after suffering the loss of their homes due to natural disasters. In Ethiopia, severe drought affects food security for over 5 million people. Reports from the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs inform that between 5 and 6.5 million people suffer from severe food insecurity due to arid conditions in the country. Authorities report that no rainfalls have been recorded in 18 months, which is significantly affecting the local ecosystems and crops. OSHA reports warn that in the Hargududu village, almost 1.5 million heads of cattle have reportedly died as a result of the current drought in the country. On Sunday in Iran, Colonel Sayyad Hodaji, commander of the Corps of the Guardians of the Islamic Revolution, was assassinated. According to local media, Sayyad Hodaji was assassinated in the capital, Tehran, by 2 men on a motorcycle as he was about to go inside his residence. Sources report that the incident took place at around 4 p.m. local time and that gunmen fired 5 shots at Sayyad, killing him with 1 shot to the head. After the murder, the president of Tehran's Court of Justice, Ali Al-Qasi, ordered Tehran's public prosecutor to accelerate efforts to identify and arrest those responsible for this criminal act. Burkina Faso security forces repelled on Saturday an attack by more than 200 terrorists on a military base north of the country. According to Burkina Faso's Government Information Service, following the terrorist attack in Bourzanga, security operations by forces previously deployed continued in that area. According to the media, they got backup from troops on Operation Barkhane, a French operation in the north of the African continent aimed at seeking stability in the region. The French army confirmed its involvement in the incident and said that they used an M2000 patrol fighter to attack and pursue the terrorists. France also confirmed that 35 terrorists and 5 Burkina Faso soldiers were killed during the operation. In Syria, UN Special Envoy Geir Pedersen welcomes a general amnesty set to free thousands of Syrians convicted on terrorism charges following a meeting with Syria's Foreign Minister Faisal Mekdad. President Bashar al-Assad has decreed several amnesties during the country's devastating 11-year war, but the latest in April was the most comprehensive related to terrorism charges since the conflict began, rights activists said. The April decree granted a general amnesty to detainees convicted of terrorism charges except cases that led to the death of a person. Syria's Justice Ministry has said hundreds of inmates had been released, and a military official, Hamad Tosan, told local media this week that the amnesty would cover thousands, including those who are wanted but not detained. And we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.